company is different, like their functionality from like, maybe a smaller brand. Obviously you have bigger budgets, bigger approach to things, a bigger scale to things, and then so how do you think it's different? And then because you also have to be more commercial, more inclusive, you have a bigger audience, you have to kind of like try to satisfy everybody. Like, what are the difficulties and the advantages, you think?
Well, first of all, as you may know, Clinique is an American brand. It's part of an international company, which is Estée Lauder, which is based in New York. So we are an affiliate. So we work on a strategic base, which is global. So we cascade a global strategy every year, but we work on a compass of 5 years. So we watch to other markets, like mostly to Asian markets, and we try to understand what will be the most important trend. So we follow that. Of course, we try to understand which is our target, and main target for Clinique worldwide is the millennial consumer, mostly women, of course. In Italy is the elder millennial. So we try to understand which is the target also in our country, and then we decide which product will be launched in our country, which is not necessarily the same launches that we have in America or in Asia or in UK, I don't know. The most important launches are global. We just launched Clinique ID, which is as we call it, the revolution of skincare, and that is global. But sometimes we just launch in some countries. Also, we do our best to cascade the strategy in Italy. So we try to understand what the market do and what L'Oréal brands does sometimes, and we do our best.
So it's basically the opposite product. Like when, for example, like single entrepreneurs, they do the product they believe in and then they see to whom it fits. You basically do the otherwise. You
Yes.
find your audience and then you see what products fit to the audience.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So your work, how like is the Italian consumer? Like, do you think there is like a big difference of between Italian women and then, for example, and women in the USA? Because now like it's getting so global, and I know that many Italian girls are watching like American YouTubers for like the makeup and the skincare, but then I still think it's quite different. And then how do you know the differences and how different they are?
The difference is very small right now. Mm-hmm. It's very thin. So if we remember to 10 years ago, the markets were very different from each other. Right now, we are going global. So the difference is very, very small right now from the Italian market and the US, even if sometimes US is further than us. So sometimes we watch at the US market, the American market, and we foresee that the Italian market will do something similar in like 1 year. That's why we're launching together the most important products, like as I mentioned, Clinique ID or some foundations, for example. Okay. It's the difference is bigger if we watch to other kind of markets, like the Asian markets, for example.
Yeah, of course. They have
the Asian consumer have very different ideas from us and very different routines, beauty routines and makeup routines. They use very few makeup products, but they have a very big skincare routine. Yeah.
So, talking about the marketing strategies, because we have like a younger audience here, and like I know that some of the girls they have kind of like their pages, their blogs. How do you, as a big company, like how do you guys select a blogger or a personality for a certain campaign? Because I saw the Clinique ID campaign like over the YouTube. Some bloggers are giving like the ad of the new product. How do you find them, or they find you? Do you have it planned also in advance? And how long is the procedure? Like, is it possible that a smaller blogger or a journalist can like approach you and be like, hey, I want to be a part of your brand, or you stick to your very strict plan and you don't even consider other figures? Like, how?
It happens all the time. Like every day we receive like 100 messages from bloggers, influencers, editors that want to collaborate with us. So it's on a daily basis. But mostly we work with people that we know. So we try to understand what have we done in the 3 years before or 5 years before. We see what worked well and what didn't, and we select all those personalities that worked well in the past for the most important campaigns, usually. And we try to work on a funnel base. So on the top of the funnel, we engage very big personalities like influencers or very big YouTubers, beauty gurus sometimes. On a middle level, we work with influencers, like power middle influencers, let's say up to 1 million followers. And for the rest, we work with bloggers, with micro-influencers, we work with editors, a lot with editors, and sometimes with consumers. We are working mostly year by year with consumers. We're trying to engage them and try to convert them to become some kind of micro-influencers themselves. We created this local campaign last October, which was called My Even Better campaign. We asked through our...
Because two of my friends just was like in that video.
Okay, that's fine.
It was like so cool because they didn't know each other, but had the two of them there. It was like really cool, honestly.
This is very cool to see.
Yeah, it was really nice because you can see like real people in this like big, huge image that sometimes you feel like untouchable, you know. And it was nice. Like as consumer, it was really nice to see that.
Yeah, I thought the same. Like we were on a meeting and we were like, okay, we are going to engage this YouTuber and this influencer and this celebrity. And I was like, okay, but as a consumer, I would like to be for one day in my life on a, I don't know, out of home or on a perfumery. So we tried to brainstorm and we came up with this idea. We launched this campaign via our social media, and we asked them to send us a picture of themselves and a brief text telling us why we should engage them. So we pre-selected a number of people, not only women, but also male people. We collaborated with Vice, with ID group to create this campaign, and then we had this meeting with all these people, and we tried to understand which of them were the best. We selected 24 people, one per shade. So at that time we had a shade extension of this foundation, which is our bestseller, Even Better. So one person per shade. And we created this video, My Even Better video. They were telling in this video why they were the best fit for this foundation and for Clinique. We used that video as a sponsor, as a TV campaign and as a media campaign. And right now we are in the perfumeries.
Okay. talking about like campaigns via like big media outlets, first, do you think the print magazines are still relevant to the makeup promotion for big companies like Clinique? And then second, are still TV commercials working, especially in Italy? I know like people watch TV in Italy quite a lot. So do you do TV commercials, and then why, or why you don't do them? And then the print magazines, and why or why not?
This is one of the main differences between the Italian market and the American market. In Italy, print magazines are still very important. So yes, we work with print magazines, we sponsor on print magazines, and also we use packets on print magazines. And yes, TV is still working in Italy. Compared to other markets, the TV has a great importance up to
So it still has a
today.
really good comeback if you place an ad on TV.
Yes. The fact is, it's not very easy nowadays to have a spot for TV, because most of the time we cannot create our videos for the TV commercials in Italy. We have to use the American TV commercials. We have to adapt, of course, those commercials. And since they do not think about TV campaigns right now, we have to use only digital assets most of the time.
Okay.
But yes, it's working. Right now we just launched the Clinique ID. We use TV, and it was huge. It helped us a lot.
Wow.
Yeah, it converts. You cannot say directly, of course, but you can see a bigger difference.
And then since you have all the strategies basically like set up by the main office, and then they basically come to you, and then you kind of have to adapt, how much of the creativity do you have? Like how much room to move do you have?
Speaking of digital, we have a great room to create assets. While if we talk about print magazines or TV commercials, we do not have the same space to create or recreate something.
Are you also provided basically like a list of magazines that you have to publish your ads in, or you can pick? And if you pick, how do you pick them?
No, we can pick. We usually pick the most important female magazines, both weekly and monthly. So the most famous. Sometimes we do not collaborate with magazines that are not very close to the Clinique image. Like, we are very democratic. So sometimes you don't really fit with the super cool magazines, even if you like it.
In fact, I wanted to ask you, because now there are so many cool, like privately owned magazines, and some of them, like the Gentlewoman, for example, they're for women only, or they have this Oda magazine, which is beautiful. Like, do you sometimes collaborate with such publishings, or you don't because you're more commercial brand and you just, it's not for you?
We collaborate with those kind of magazines, but on an advertorial basis. We do not use the classic print ads.
Can you tell if this kind of like magazines and advertorials are more functional for, like, are more helpful to you than the regular ads, or not, or you can't tell?
I cannot tell, to be honest. Of course, it's easier to work with magazines that are more common, which are spread all over the market. Of course, if you collaborate with an indie magazine, you know that you will reach a smaller audience.
Yeah.
So that's basically the reason why we do not buy print ads on those magazines.
Okay, next question is how big is your team and how does it work? And if you have new people coming in the team, like the interns or whatever, like how does the turnaround go like in the company? Or it's maybe a very stable team and you've been together for like many years.
No, there's a change of people every like 2 to 3 years. There are people living in Clinique since like the 90s. And then there are others that are staying for 1 or 2 or 3 years and then they change. It is quite common to change between the same company and just change brands. As you may know, Estée Lauder companies has a lot of brands inside, so maybe you can work for Clinique for like 2 to 3 years, then you change, you go to Estée Lauder or Smashbox or I do not know, Le Labo, and so you change. We are 6 people in the marketing team, divided since a few months in the consumer marketing team and product marketing team and trade marketing team. And then there's a PR team. I'm spread between marketing and PR. But we are like 15 people in Clinique right now.
Okay, well,
If you do not count the sales managers.
I thought that there's like much bigger office, to be honest.
We are an affiliate.
Okay.
So
Well, then another question is, then do you have, because you know there are so many newer brands coming up, like the privately owned brands, also now in Italy, like, and they're becoming actually quite successful. When you do your research and you do your like trend forecasting, whatever, do you consider like some of them maybe as competitors already, or when you do all of your calculations on the marketing, like you know, on the product competition, whatever, like do you, or you just consider like the big brands and that's it? Like you don't even put yourself next to some of the privately or indie brands?
we watch indie brands more to see what they're doing on a communication basis, to be honest. Because indie brands are smarter and they often have more interesting ideas, more newness than bigger brands. But if you're referring to our strategy, we compared us to bigger brands.
Okay, got it. And then when you plan your like strategy and then the competition, does it only like, do you guys consider like just the marketing strategy, or you kind of also know like, oh, we heard that there's going to be this and that launch, and you try not to put together like the products that come out? Like do you have to hack for this insider information, or for you it's quite available and so you can build your own plan? I don't know if my question was quite clear, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we have a media agency that does this work for us.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah, it's easier.
So you don't have to go and kind of like spy on the office next to you and be like, what are you doing there?
No, but to be honest, we have this group on WhatsApp with all the marketing team, and every time one of us sees something coming up, we message all the others.
Did it ever happen that, for instance, some product was launched and the company was super sure it's going to be a super successful launch and it's going to sell well, and then something went wrong and it wouldn't sell? And did that ever happen? And did you ever find a reason why?
Luckily for me, not in the past 4 years.
Okay, good.
And hopefully it won't happen in the next year. Fingers crossed. It happened the opposite.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there was
Good.
this launch in 2016. It was a Pep Start launch. It was a very small franchise, and the company wasn't very, hot about that. And we believed that it could have been a very important launch for our market. and we created a big moment on that, and it worked. But the company is not working on that franchise, so we'll have to lose all that in a few years.
Oh, and you already know that.
Yeah.
And you can't do anything about it, basically.
No. No, unfortunately no.
Okay, and then question two, like some collaborations that you do, for instance, like back to digital with like maybe Instagram influencers or YouTube influencers. Does it happen sometimes that you might basically like give them a product or like plan a campaign and then you don't like the outcome? Or maybe they do, like they promise you one thing and then you see another thing and you like start basically getting like bad comments or something. Like, do you have any of this kind of like crisis situations, or things got like it was fine and it never happened and it's fine?
It happens sometimes that on a collaboration, some influencers come out with contents that we do not like. It happens quite often, to be honest. From a backlash perspective, it didn't happen over the past few years. Of course, sometimes it happens that we repost a post of an influencer and we see some comments that are bad, but nothing that I can say it's been a crisis, not a crisis situation to...
Then if you don't like, for example, the work that person have done, like you don't work with them anymore, like how does it work? Like you kind of like, or you're like, okay, well, that's fine. Or like, how does it, like, you know, how does it work? And then how do you manage those situations?
You need to work with very clever managers. Lucky for me, I have a friend of mine which is here tonight, which is an influencer manager. And if you work with people that knows how to handle those kind of situations, you can go on and work well, even if something wrong happened. But if you work with influencers that are not really pros, then you can have some problems. Okay. And it can happen because you know it's something that is changing every day, and you do not have an historical referment of that, so you cannot tell.
So it kind of goes away and that's it.
Yes.
Okay. And then the last question regarding like the consumers and the clients of the brand. Like, do you have to go, I mean, obviously like you read probably the feedback on the products and then like on the social media. Do you guys, because you know now in the United States it's a big deal. Like if somebody gives like an influencer or maybe like consumers have like a big comment or like a complaint about the product, they try to fix it as soon as possible. Some companies take their time. How do you manage this? Like how do you actually like get this information together? Because it's a lot of comments, it's usually a lot of like emails, complaints, or like good reviews. So how do you kind of like sort out all of this information? And then do you actually like give it to a main office, or like what do you do with that?
Well, we always try to deal with all those, let's say, problems, issues on the affiliate. We have an educational team and a consumer number. We can help them. But if the problem is a major problem with the product, we send it to our region in Paris. And if the problem goes on, it persists, then we send it to New York. We have 3 offices, but always we try to handle these on a local base.
Do you have any like the craziest consumer story in your career? Like maybe like some crazy client or something?
There are crazy people everywhere.
That literally like stroke you and you're like, how does it even work?
Every day.
Let us know.
No, I cannot tell.
Okay.
No, it happens all the time. I mean, you If you could see the hands of Clinique Italia, you would laugh a lot.
But do you guys like laugh at this in the office, or you're like, oh no, I just can't anymore, like it's so negative? Or
No, we usually laugh. When it becomes very difficult to handle, then we're like, oh my God, what are we gonna do with this? But usually we laugh. I mean, crazy people are everywhere. I mean,
okay. And
but
then
most of the time you can handle them.
okay. And then for the social media, I know that it's very like a brand content, and then you don't really have like, you know, a person behind the brand, but still, do you get any like ad comments or like inbox to your Instagram and Facebook accounts, or usually it's just like regarding the product and it's more like calm down?
No, to be honest, they are most of the time they're very positive.
Oh, okay.
It happens sometimes that when we repost some influencers' contents, some people are sending messages like, "Why are you collaborating with this bitch?" Or, but you know, we have this answer that we usually give them. We say, "Thank you for your feedback. This is very kind of you." We try to make everybody happy. We try to create a great skin for everybody. We believe that this influencer is super nice and it fits with the brand. But thank you for your feedback, and we will see what we can do with this.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies. Enjoy your time now.